This morning, I want to talk about something that I've made up, but it is totally a thing. I want to talk about a therapist dysmorphia. And this is coming from like a body dysmorphia scenario, but from a therapist point of view. And Justin and I will just be like, talking about our personal stuff, but also our perceptions of interactions that we've had as well. But before we get to that,
Christian, haven't done that for a
very
while.
important question. Okay. So, is it normal or not to talk to your friends and family in a baby voice?
What a weird question.
Oh, come on, sweetheart. Don't you
No.
know how to answer? Oh,
Ugh.
what about your parents? Because sometimes they talk to us in the baby voice.
No. The only time we would do that voice is if we were taking the piss. That would not be done. No, it makes me want to vomit thinking about it.
It actually gives me the shits, especially when like I'm at soccer or pool comp and then they come in, they start talking. I'm like, stop it. We're not even having this conversation if you can't talk to me in an adult voice.
How odd.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't even think in my head what it would kind of sound like, really.
Well, I admit, like I had an ex once that every time he wanted something, he'd be like, "Hey, babe, do you
Oh, I
think?"
have
And
had
I'm
that
like,
before. Ugh.
"No, I don't think. Stop it."
No, I wouldn't find that very sexy or anything.
Very,
Not at
very
all.
appealing. Very appealing.
No.
Love
Oh,
it. Love
come
it.
on. But that's more persuasive than
Maybe that's a
using your
hypnosis
voice.
technique.
Yeah, that's more just using your voice to manipulate than a baby
Because
voice.
you want to get something your way, don't you?
Yep.
Mm.
Can I please have some
All
ice
right.
cream, mummy?
Oh, no.
It
You know
sounds more
what?
like a fetish. Oh,
Oh, I wonder if it is. I'm going to Google that.
of course, there'd be a baby voice fetish if there's
Is
people wearing
talking
nappies.
in a baby voice a fetish? Let's find out. Why do adults talk in it? Usually happens when talking to the opposite sex, and it's usually so that you can complain or receive something in a public way. That has to be a fetish.
Put it
Hmm.
out to the group.
Oh, apparently it's also known as social bonding.
Weird kind of bonding.
This way of speaking can foster closeness and affection, especially when interacting with children or pets. It often conveys warmth and playfulness. Do it to my cat. I'm like, hey, you cutie, woody,
Oh,
woody,
yeah, I'd
woody.
probably do it to cats and
But I
kids.
wouldn't do
Oh.
it to my
Hey,
parents or
puppy.
my partner
See, I just
or
did it
anything.
now. You ready? Come here, little puppy. Come here, little cuddle. It really is watching me. Come here. So yeah, I do it for
Yeah,
animals.
but not to your parents or your partner or no,
Oh my
yucky.
God, my mum would die from laughter if I did that.
Eh.
Come here, mummy. Come on, mummy.
All right, so let's talk about therapist dysmorphia. So I'll start off because it is a personal thing. Um, One thing that I was, and I know that I should be like grateful and all this sort of shit, but one thing that I did make a goal of to go to the Hypnosis New Zealand conference was to get back into my blue dress. And my blue dress fit me. It wasn't tight or anything like that. I had lost about 6 kilos, so it wasn't a huge amount. But then when I saw the photos, I was like, oh, I still look so fat in it.
That's how I'd feel, yep, when I look at photos.
It's like, really? Like, and I know the camera always adds like 600 kilos, but is that a form of dysmorphia as in my visual perception? Or is it just a expectation that needs to be rebalanced? Because I thought you looked fantastic. And then
And
you
I thought
said,
you look good in those, yeah, those photos. Now, I'll tell you what, those photos.
mhm, mhm.
So nearly everybody, there was only I sent photos to women that were great. right? And guys, but it was only the woman that commented back.
Mhm.
I think only 2 women out of the photos I sent either didn't comment, as in didn't say anything. Most of them said, "Oh, thank you, it's a nice photo."
Mhm.
I would say only 2 responded in that way. Every other woman was like, "Oh my God, I look so big," or "I look yuck," or
I did that.
and they were great photos, and they were great photos. It's
Oh, great
just
photos, but I was like, oh man, I've put in all this effort to lose some weight and that's it.
yeah, and it's like because I always wonder that about photos. It's like even just your face shape on photos is different to what you see in the mirror.
Yeah,
It's
all I
different to
saw
what
was
people see.
this.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh no, am I really that bad? Because I've been doing this fitness thing where you like go like this and you do it like to tighten up the waddle as they call it. I was like, I've been working really hard on that, and all
Yeah,
I
but
see
it's
is
interesting
this.
too, though, like that when you look at the photos, you zoom in on yourself. And I had to look at myself and then look at others and look at myself and look at others to see proportions because all I could see was this big blob, which, okay, one of the
I
photos was
saw
a big blob. I did see in one of my photos, I did I did look about 7 months pregnant, but when I asked friends, they laughed and they're like, yep, it's a good thing that we're doing maternity hypnosis. But because of the angle of the photo, it did look like I was having a baby. But it's quite interesting how
your
your
hand
mind
as
just kind of
well.
zones in and maybe there needs to be some work done on neutralizing seeing yourself. And I mean, I don't know, in the wild, were we even meant to see ourselves?
Well, they say that animals
You know?
don't understand the concept of size. So that's why you'll get like a little dog taking on an elephant because they don't realize how big or small they really are.
Yeah, and animals don't realize that the thing they
No.
see in the
And
mirror
and
is themselves.
yeah.
Our horse was getting freaked out because it was standing in a yard next to a garage, and the garage had a window, and so it kept on looking over and freaking out at its own reflection in the window. We thought it was quite funny because it
Mm.
couldn't figure out that that wasn't another horse. So when you think
Ah.
our we are an animal in our animal
Yeah,
brain,
we're animals.
it's like sometimes you look at I look at photos and it's not me. Like I see that picture and I can't get in my head that that's me because
I
it
haven't edited my video yet because I know I have to go through like about 3 hours of watching myself going, oh Trish, oh
it's a good thing
Trish.
to switch the triggers off. But I do think like my I know I've talked to older people and they say when they look in their mirrors, they can recognize their own eyes, but they don't recognize
Yeah,
themselves
the
in their head.
vessel.
And as they age, they don't recognize the person that they're looking at because we almost tend to stay. Maybe we stay at a time that we're really happy or we're
Mm.
happy with ourselves. Maybe we lock that in as who we are so that
Mm.
when we see something different, we don't recognize ourselves.
But it can
You
work in
know?
the adverse, or not the adverse, but the opposite effect as well. I've met some people that are larger than life and they don't have any perception of what they look like. And I've seen those people going out in public with, say you've got this woman and she's 160 kilos, she's got no bra on at all, got the spaghetti strap that's holding on for dear life, supporting what's flopping around going on in here. And they're just strutting their stuff with full confidence. And I'm like, you go, girl. You just rock that.
I had a client once that came in for help with emotional eating and stuff. It wasn't essentially for weight loss, but when we talked about what she weighed, she told me she weighed a certain number.
Mm.
And I was usually I see it the other way around where people believe they're a lot bigger than they are. But this one here, when she told me what she thought she weighed, I actually got her to weigh herself and she was about 60 kilos out.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So there was a distortion, and so we worked on that, and we had to work on that. But the distortion was ginormous. Like the body had not caught
I
up
can
with
totally
what was
relate to
going
that.
on at all. And it's quite sad because there is, there's a lot of stuff, trauma, things that are not wanting to be seen, and the body's responding to stuff going on in the environment, and the mind's not catching up.
Mm.
But this person came in solely for emotional eating because she was noticing, but she didn't know it had caught up with her body. And to me, it's really interesting I mean, you get that with eating disorders, it's the opposite, it's still an eating disorder, but she had not caught up. So she did not realize how big and how dangerously big she was.
Because I can relate to that. The reason being is because I used to go to like a weigh-in class on Thursday nights, and you would like take a piece of fruit, get weighed in, and then whoever won the night for the most weight loss would take all the fruit home. And so currently my weight is 125 kilos.
Yep.
And then I would see other people there that are like 90 kilos, but they were like a ball. So weight really doesn't equate.
It's very different, yeah, and it depends on, yeah. So for me, when you do weight loss, I've done thousands and thousands of people now for weight loss. It's pretty much been most of my career. Numbers are absolutely nothing. You can't detect just because of bone density, muscle, height, the structure of a person. But people generally know themselves
when they're
where
carrying
they're
it.
where they're healthiest. So like say if I get if I get what is your weight on the scale, a number, for me it's not to determine whether I think it's healthy or not. It's because we know. So I know that when I weigh 82, I feel really good in my clothes. That's my number where I'm quite healthy. And I know when I'm not there. You know what I mean? But someone else might say to me, I might go to the doctor and they might say to me, well, you should be 58 with your,
apparently I'm
you know what I
supposed to be
mean?
74 or 75. I'm like,
But so like I've learned really quickly that a number on a scale means absolutely nothing. I've seen people who weigh 120 and they're size 14 and all muscle, and you know what I mean? So
like,
it's all determined on,
oh,
how the body shape is. But people do in their own mind have an idea of where they know where they are when they're healthiest, because when they've been at a good weight, they're usually jumping on a scale. So, people have that idea of where I feel good at in my body, and where I feel a bit too, and people come in where they're under. Oh, when I got to this weight, I lost too much and I felt gaunt and I didn't actually like what I looked in the mirror. So people generally have a idea of what's healthy. But yeah, it's really surprising when people think that they're so in that range. Really, they're like 50 kilos over that range. Um, how their mind hasn't caught up. But I mean, our mind has this incredible ability to keep us safe.
Oh,
And
John's
that's what
adamantly
it's doing.
convinced. John's adamantly convinced that drinking like a Gatorade every day, and having his lollies and stuff, he doesn't eat that bad. It's like, well, you've got this body stuff going on where your brain hasn't caught up. He's like, I just need to exercise. It's like, no amount of exercise is going to negate a bad eating habit.
Yeah. So I think it's and like what you said, if you use the word dysmorphia in different ways, like you were giving examples to me before we started about people who it's not just a body thing, like people can be.
Oh, it's a money thing. So let's go with like a therapist dysmorphia from a money dysmorphia phase. So I've had those people that are like, Trish, I need to get my passive income sorted out. I need work, blah, blah, blah. And I offer them the olive branch where I'm like, hey, here's the information. This is how you do it. And all of a sudden they're twirling their hair and they're like, oh, well, I've been really busy and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, well, you obviously don't need the money then. Once we went to a Chinese restaurant with John's family, and Jane was there. So that's John's dad's wife. And Jane was there, and she's sitting there, and she's only a petite little lady. She's so cute. And as she was sitting there, she's like, oh, I wouldn't mind some ice cream. And I'm like, get yourself some ice cream, Jane. It's fine. And she's like, oh, I don't know if we can afford it. It was fucking $5 for the ice cream, and they've basically got $1 million in the bank. I don't know if I can afford it. Like, piss off. Stop
Yeah,
with your shit. Like, at the end of the day, you want to have ice cream, have some bloody ice cream, but don't go, I don't know if I can afford it. Like, get rid of your
yeah, yeah,
bullshit.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
even the same with therapists going, oh, my practice isn't going that well. Well, it's now your job to go and get clients to make your practice go well. And if you're not happy with that, then you really don't need the money, do you?
yeah, 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 yeah.
You
But
know?
it is very, very
What about, let's go into one that's a little bit controversial. What about pet dysmorphia? Let's just make this up. Pet dysmorphia. You know how those people have this animal that's just fucking ugly and it's dumb and it's a complete pain in the ass of life, but then they're just doing the whole, oh well, I've got to look after this because it's my responsibility as a pet owner. It's like, no, you don't. It's your responsibility as a pet owner to love the animal and it will be happy if it wants to stay with you. But if it's miserable, it's now your responsibility to find somebody that it will be happy with.
yeah, 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 yeah. I suppose that's the whole. It's an interesting one. That's the whole keeping. I've got this thing about people who keep horses alive when they're in pain because they don't want to put them down, and they keep them
Yeah.
going and going and going, and they're in a paddock and they're in pain every day, and it's life is
So that
horrible.
would be a form of
But
dysmorphia, yeah?
well, to me, it's more like who's benefiting keeping the animal alive.
Yeah.
No, because in the wild they would have put themselves out of the herd, and we have a
Well, that
natural way of.
that also leads to the thought of a form of dysmorphia with being in a toxic relationship because they
That's a good
see that
one.
person as great or fantastic, like, the filter is there, but they're,
Rose-colored glasses.
yeah, they're really horrible, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. God, well, God would do done so much therapy on people, and I probably need therapy a lot. I have probably needed it in the past to do with relationships, but how people get this, the way I explain it to people is that when you meet someone, your mind, our very lovely creative mind takes that person and creates this future story, and if you're the more creative your mind is, the more you go into the future where we're going to grow old together and it's all beautiful and it's perfect, and then the person starts dating that person, not the real one,
Good
and then
point.
this person changes and they're like, no, you've got to change because you're not matching this person I created in my head.
Good
You're the one
point.
that's wrong. And I'm like, no, this person has never changed. This is who they were from the day they started. What happened is you created a personality in your head or a pathway to represent this person, and this person isn't living up to it. And I find that quite sad. This person might be a dodgy person, and they might just be what this person considers dodgy from day one, but they want to try and change them, or when this person leaves because they break up and this person's heartbroken, they're mourning the fake one because this one was an asshole.
Yeah, true.
So they end up mourning a person that never even existed
Never
in the first
existed.
place.
But that can
Isn't that
also come
crazy?
into the therapist dysmorphia because people like you and me, we get a client or we get a student in, and all we know is that future potential.
Yeah.
We're like, wow, you can go places, you can do things, you can help people. And then suddenly they're just like, oh, I'm sitting at home, I got no clients.
Yeah,
Like, oh, come on.
I have to say in the past, I have taught some incredibly
Amazing
talented,
people.
amazing people that probably don't do it as much as they could now. But in saying that,
Because we
life.
fucking believe in you. We're in love with your future you and
But
your
we can
potential
see,
you.
because we can see the potential. But I
Mm,
mean, our job is, it takes I'd say it takes a freaking rock star or someone with ADHD, because ADHD people live in the moment,
hmm
to give up safety and security of a full-time job to be an entrepreneur.
mm.
And so a
And
lot of
hey,
people, yeah,
nobody said doing what we do was easy. They just
no,
assume
no,
it is.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
no,
And
you've got
I
to
mean, it's
learn the
not so
boring
much
shit.
it's not so much the hypnotherapy itself, it's the risk that gets involved in leaving leaving a salary and
Mm.
putting that chance in yourself, and that's what people struggle with the most, I find. Not the actual therapy itself, being a therapist, it's the workload, the business stuff, eh?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway from this kind of dysmorphia, like for me personally, is starting to pull back from that future perception of others, like you said, you know, like I think, we don't want to be assholes. We don't want to go flatline and go, no, fuck this. I'm just going to go in the exact moment, exactly how you are, where you are, blah, 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 blah. But we need that balance of expectations of where to put our energy, where to pull it back,
Yeah, yeah.
and,
Yeah, yeah.
and change those
And
expectations.
keep yourself pretty present. When I'm working with the
Yeah.
clients that are in the relationships where they believe their partner's changed or whatever, sometimes I have to be so hard because
Yeah,
I
because
have to
perhaps they
like
haven't
almost like
changed.
shake them and say, was this the person that you met? Was this person like that when? Yes,
Yeah, because like you
yes,
said,
yeah,
they
they
might be
were.
still.
It's unfair to make them change. They don't need to change to live up to your expectation. They need to
Mm.
find someone that matches them, and you need to find someone that matches you. So
So
it
when
is
that's
bringing them back into what's actually real. Get
Yeah,
rid of
because when
the
that stuff
fear,
is changing, so you're
and
bringing them back to the present and them realizing that this person has always been the same.
yeah, and the only thing, the only difference is that you fell in love with an idea, and that idea
You
is not.
love the idea of me, not the reality of me.
Yeah, yeah, and like I always say, everybody has a person or persons out there to match them, and if you're not that one, then you need to set them free so that they can go and be the
Yeah,
perfect person for someone else and find someone
match
that fits.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so
It's
yeah.
but it is a form of like, don't know if dysmorphia is the right word, but it is that idea. Maybe that's happening with the photo, Trish, where we have this future
Nah, the
idea
photo
about
still
how
sucks.
we. No, but you know what I mean. But maybe in our head we see ourselves how we want to be, so that when we see something else, it is a bit of confronting because
Mm.
because we are very future focused. Anyone that does hypnotherapy knows that. Like I said the other day,
Live in the
you
future.
that cool saying that I said to you, are you
Yes,
being
I loved it.
dreamed or are you a dreamer? Hypnotherapists are dreamers because we're not like that. They were saying that a person being dreamed is a person that's just allowing to fate or responding to the environment and karma and all of that stuff. Whereas dreamers are always future pacing. Where do I want to go? They're the ones that are dreaming reality, coming up with new ideas, while other people are just victims to whatever comes their way and they're responding to the environment. And maybe as being a dreamer, we dream ourselves in our mind how we want to be. And then sometimes I do believe that cameras fuck up angles though. Fuck up
Oh,
lighted wrong
trust me.
angles. Because I'm pretty
Trust me.
sure I don't look 7 months pregnant, maybe three or
Yeah, but
four.
where you had your hand didn't really help because you had it like on the top of your belly, but that's just where you kind of rested it. So
I
that
must go
didn't
like this
really
though.
help, you know? So yeah,
You
I
know what I
have to
mean?
admit, I thought I looked way better in that dress. And then when I saw the photos, I was like, oh,
I'll tell you one thing cameras do though. I'll give it so cameras.
let's blame the camera.
But I will say this is what cameras do. So when you have a camera, it's really hard to get depth perception. So
True.
say you look at a beautiful set of mountains and there's mountains behind mountains and there's 3 or 4 layers. Unless you have a very expensive camera, that camera will bring the layers together so it's one big mountain. Does that make sense? So like when it's taking a photo of me, it's instead
So
of
we
going
just went for
back
the
to back
one
to
big
back, it's
mountain.
put it all together and it's squished it like that.
We're just gonna mush faces together like we're all one big
It's
mountain.
gone like this. Are you ready?
That'll
But I
be
mean,
our
that is,
pre-shot.
but then I was thinking about that the other day because I was looking across the road. I drove out of my driveway and I've been driving out of here for 4, 5, 6 months, right? But as I was driving out, I noticed a tree must have fallen because I would have noticed it before. But there was this perfect circle in these trees, and behind it, it was like a hole into a whole nother forest. So there was another set of trees way behind the hole. And I said to my daughter, "Fuck, that's cool. I want to take a photo." But I knew that if I took a photo,
Wouldn't have the
the
same
hole wouldn't
impact.
stand out. It would have just been trees on the. So I mean, the camera does pull things together. So unless you've got a very structured face and really harsh lines, it puts everything together. But that's my excuse anyway.
Blame
That's
the
what I tell
camera.
myself.
Blame the camera. So yeah. So thanks everybody for joining in. We hope you got something out of this conversation. And remember, don't talk to us in a baby voice because we don't love that.
You sure? But we really love it.
All right, everybody.